The inspiration changed. It started off for me riding horses because I didn't want to be around people, and I thought I could have a job where maybe I was just riding horses all day, which I really like the thought of that. Since then, it's actually evolved. Now I've realised that it's not actually just about horse behaviour and having a good outcome from the horse's point of view and keeping the rider safe. But now it's got to the point where all the people that I teach and train actually really like the people. The people are really good. So it's done a full circle. So I've started off saying I wanted to do just horses because I don't go very well with people, and now it's actually all about the people. Lucy and Oliver have struggled for quite a while because he's been a horse that's not that easy to train, and she has a hearing difficulty, and sometimes my communication to her isn't clear enough. So the good thing about my relationship with Lucy is that I've been able to focus on my ability to communicate really clearly with her. So I do a lot of actions. You'll see that when I'm teaching her, I put her hands in a certain position and I draw pictures on the ground and all those sorts of things. She is probably one of my hardest working pupils. She just doesn't give up. Unfortunately, the horse isn't that compliant, and that's what we're working on. We're really trying to work on that when she sits on the horse, for example, that he doesn't just keep tossing her out of the saddle. We're just trying to work out so not only the connection with the reins, but the connection with the whole body to the horse is then kept quieter, so then she can send much more subtle messages. Because if there's background noise to subtle messages, the subtle messages won't be heard. So for example, if they're up and down in the saddle, or they're fluffing from side to side, or they're bouncing around, the horse won't be able to hear the subtleties that are required in these manoeuvres that we're trying to get the horse to understand. In this case, all we want the horse to be able to do is to take the same line with his spine as the circle in this case. And on the left rein, that's notoriously difficult for him because he's quite stiff. And then also helping her understand that if I can say to her, I've got a glass of water on your head and I've got a glass of water in each hand, I want you to keep it really still, so we can make that connection with her body to the horse, so then she can send the subtle messages. And that's really what we're working on with her. Rochelle, how long have we been working with her now?
About 12 months, coming on 12 months.
So 12 months, and the very first session that we did was actually not here, it was in an indoor, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I rode her the very first time, what did I say? What did I say to you? What I thought the issue was?
Contact.
Yeah. Was it the same? It's not the same answers that other people gave you, is it?
No.
Yeah. So it was really just, I thought it was actually a whole lot simpler, would you say? That I thought the whole thing
Yeah,
was,
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, if I said to you in one sentence, how do you reckon that you and I have been able to make the biggest difference with this horse? Why did that happen? How did we do that? What did we do?
Well, we gave her the time and gave her time to, take the contact, and really go back to, well, not go back to basics. I mean, she's a young horse, but do the basics, alignment, keeping her straight and making her go into the contact.
Yeah. So when we started doing that, did you feel at any time that when we started doing that, when you rode her initially, that there were periods that actually you felt as if jeopardised your safety when you first rode her in those early stages?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she wasn't a happy horse.
No.
Absolutely.
So what sort of evasions did she throw at you and
threatening to go up.
To rear?
Yeah, just with any light contact. You didn't have to put much pressure on her at all. Yeah.
So if we've now obviously got her quieted, so now we can ask her new questions that she doesn't obviously know the answer to yet. But it doesn't produce all those other behaviours, and what we're really trying to do here is trying to keep you safe, because you're more important than her. I mean, I'm not saying she's not important.
No.
But her welfare is second to your safety.
Correct.
So how do you think that has translated from the beginning to now? How do you think that translated? Like, how did it happen?
I think we have given her confidence back.
Yeah.
That she can actually take the bit and actually know that it's not a negative thing to her. It's actually a positive thing. And learning that she can actually use her body, mainly the back end, to take that contact instead of having
That's right.
it brought to me.
Do you remember, I think it was about 9 months ago, and we had her down here on the arena, and the one thing she wouldn't do, she wouldn't stand.
Correct.
She just wouldn't stop, would she? She just kept going the entire time.
And that's when she threatened to go up.
Threatened to rear, didn't she?
Yeah. That was my biggest fear, is actually halting.
Yeah, it was halting. And now we have to make it go.
Have no problem
She's a
at
bit
all.
lazy.
Yeah, she is lazy. So it's just turned around.
Yeah, it's like a different horse, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely different horse.
The only reason I know it's the same horse is because of her pretty mark.
Exactly.
But she's a lot quieter in the eye too. Like
she's happy in her work now. She actually comes to the gate. She actually wants to be worked now, where before she didn't.
Yeah. So because this is the whole thing is actually not about me. This is actually all about you being able to go away with the homework and the stuff that I actually ask you to do, and you being consistent enough to produce it. That's why we've got here.
Yeah, and it's great to go home with homework because like if I don't have homework, I don't know what to continue on with.
Yeah, well, that's right.
So you give me lots of homework, so it's great.
That's good. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you, Jonna. Thanks.
The hard part about this horse is that although yesterday his tendency to rear was a whole lot more violent, a whole lot more determined, it was probably preceded by the fact that the horse was fairly adrenalised at the start because he'd got away with it. So in other words, if a horse is able to get away with being able to randomly make its legs go faster, then it makes the horse really quite excitable. So its tendency to try that behaviour again is even more likely because it's already got away with it the once. So it becomes then, in this context, in this situation, at this time, with this rider, when he or she does this to me, I can do that. That makes it quite difficult for the rider to understand what to do about it, but it's not that difficult. Do you go on my line? Do you go at the speed I want you to on my line? And the third one, the most critical one, do you go on my line at the speed that I want all by yourself? So a state of cruise control or self-carriage of line. He doesn't do that. In fact, when I first handled him today, he was actually really quite heavy, even in hand. So I did some work with him in hand, getting his stop and his go, just those two buttons working first, and then got on him. And he didn't end up getting his anxiety levels didn't end up increasing because the rules kept the same and he got quieter and quieter. But the interesting thing about it was, although I was describing to the clients that we need to find the right rider, and that's the key here. The key here is, yes, the horse potentially can be dangerous. This isn't the right rider. We've agreed to that, and I've said to her not to ride him. But what we need to do is find the right rider. If the right rider with the right information, there's a free horse sitting right there. And there's plenty of these horses about. And it's unfortunate, isn't it, that just through a lack of training and a lack of thoroughness, that we end up in a situation where we're playing God, where we have to destroy a horse or put it down, call it whatever you like, just because our training isn't clear. I find that eternally sad, and that's why I do what I do. So when I arrive, generally I arrive here on a Friday morning or a Thursday evening, and so I'll sit down with Jill. She'll lay out all the lessons that I have before me, and then any other issues. There may be a new client or a new horse or a dangerous horse or a horse that we're not sure about how well it goes, and we need to discuss that so that we don't end up eclipsing too much time with that one person, so it all remains quite fair and equal, but by the same token as providing the outcomes that the client wants. So the lesson that I was just giving Julie a hand with was really for not just her benefit, but also the horse's benefit. It was a two-in-one lesson in a lot of ways, because what happened is that every time she used her leg on the horse would question whether it actually really does have to go. So then I don't presume that the horse is being naughty. I don't presume that the horse should know better, and I certainly don't presume that the horse is doing anything other than trying out whether the rider's skill set is good enough to make it go. And that's really the angle that I come from. So in other words, the first question that goes through my mind, well, does he know the answer? And if he doesn't know the answer, then the most important thing about understanding the answer is to be able to make sure we ask the right question. And the question in this case in the beginning was, do you know what the leg means? And if you don't, the only thing that will take the pressure away from the leg is when I get walk, for example, and then when I get faster walk. So then we start to then be able to shape the response to the point that it actually only takes a single touch with the leg to be able to get the desired result. It's only then, once that can be done predictably, can we say that the horse then either understands or actually, in fact, responds to that one cue predictably. We then did that with the whip as well. So then we covered the answer, do you know the question to the whip? Do you know the question to the leg aid? So then when we put the two together, it was really quite simple, because then all we did was closed our calf, and that was our signal for the horse to go faster, or used our heel, whatever it was. And then if he didn't go, then we made more noise with either the leg. In our case, we actually made more noise with the whip. So the horse's capability of being able to detrain, get duller from the whip, only takes a couple of rides. So that's why we have to be really careful to make sure that every time we do ride, we remain effective. And that's what that lesson was all about. That lesson was all about helping the rider to remain effective, and from the horse's point of view, making sure that the horse's welfare is looked after by giving the rider predictable outcomes. What we want to achieve with the young grey horse of Karen's is to be able to maximise her safety, but also be able to train the horse in such a way that its world becomes clearer through clearer signals, consistent signals, so then it becomes more predictable, becomes more reliable, and then it's also able to withstand the variations that we get with either competition or training days, or whether we want to take it to a different location, a location that it's never been to before. In order to do that, my ability to communicate with the owner, or the rider owner in this case, to be able to duplicate pretty much whatever I do is the essence to the outcome. So for me it's all about safety, and we know with this horse she's inclined to be a little bit lazy, and therein lies the problem. So once a horse becomes lazy, then forward becomes optional, and that's when the danger can start to creep into the scenario. And so today was a really, really good day. The horse was really willing to go forward. Yesterday was not so good. The horse was quite a bit more testy for the rider, so I took over the ride today, and then tomorrow, actually on Monday, we'll give the horse a day off tomorrow, and then on Monday we'll revisit it and I'll reintegrate the rider. So the aim is really to try and help her to be able to ride and become as effective as me, and that's what we're going to try and produce on Monday.